Let's talk about why we're here today. So Drupal 7 end of life is happening on January 5th of 2025. After several extensions, this is the final extension according to the Drupal Association. I'm sure all of you on the call are aware of all of this already. January 5th will mark 14 years since Drupal 7's original release. This tells us that sites built on Drupal 7 may very well be ready for an update. After that end of life date, Drupal 7 sites will no longer receive feature updates, bug fixes, security releases, and compatibility with newer versions of PHP and MySQL. As of January 14th, about 340,000 out of about 800,000 Drupal websites are still living on Drupal 7, which is a really big number. So if your site is one of those 340,000 still living on Drupal 7 and you're unsure of next steps for your content management system, my colleagues at Atten would absolutely love to help. Today, we're going to hear from 3 of Atten's developers about these 3 options: Backdrop CMS, WordPress, and Drupal. First, Liren, our senior backdrop developer and core backdrop maintainer, will discuss why it's a great option for D7 sites.
Thank you. For those of you who may not be familiar with it, Backdrop is arguably the smoothest off-ramp when trying to take your website from Drupal 7 to whatever is next. And the reason is because it's essentially a fork of Drupal 7 from 8 or 9 years ago. And since then, it's made the intentional decision to prioritize backwards compatibility, even as it makes improvements and adds features into the future. So it basically makes a very smooth path from a Drupal 7 site to upgrade to a Backdrop site. Functionally, this means there's a direct path for that upgrade rather than a migration process, which I'll talk about in a little more depth in just a moment. Because it's forked from Drupal 7, the interface will feel familiar, although over the years it's become much improved. That underlying familiarity with the general bones of the structure and so on will feel familiar. And both of these things make Backdrop a very budget-friendly option. So there's a number of reasons why you may fall in love with Backdrop. One of which is if you're mostly happy with your current Drupal 7 site and you don't have a real need to rebuild and migrate, and the primary thing that's driving your interest in your new website is that Drupal 7 is reaching end of life. If that's the primary driver, definitely Backdrop is a prime consideration. Another reason you would love Backdrop is if you don't have the budget to start from scratch. Now, although you may still have a list of improvements that you'd like to make as part of the upgrade process, but if you have a smaller budget, you can't just scrap it and start from the beginning. Backdrop is a good option to consider. Site changes can be incorporated into the upgrade process, adding, removing, adjusting various things. Oftentimes, if you have a site that has been running for all these years, you have somewhere a list of annoyances or things that don't work like they should, or workarounds that you have to do in order to get it to do what you want it to do. And that list can be very valuable in this process, and see if those types of things can be ironed out and smoothed out and fixed as part of the upgrade. And other fixes can be done post-upgrade. There's no reason why it has to all be done in the upgrade itself. You may also want ongoing improvements to your software. Much of Drupal 7 development has dried up completely, but Backdrop is continually making improvements to the UI and functionality, staying on top of any potential security issues, adding accessibility improvements, that kind of thing, to keep your online presence up to code. You may also want a better editor or administrative experience versus what you have in Drupal 7. As we heard, Drupal 7 is now basically 14-year-old software. Backdrop core and the contrib space have updated a lot of the libraries to more current versions. There's multiple options for modern editors in CK Editor 5 or the latest version of TinyMCE. New features in modules like paragraphs, a next generation administrative theme in Gin, which is being brought to Backdrop. Plug for my little project. You may also appreciate the traditional power and flexibility of Drupal. Things like views, content types, taxonomy, permissions, all of these continue with Backdrop. And another consideration you may have is that your staff is fully trained and has good workflows in place for your current site, and everything's working really well. It may be a big benefit not to have to retrain everybody from the ground up, to be able to continue with the workflows that are working and then adapt, like I said, the things that need a little bit of grease during the upgrade process. As well, you may want to take advantage of integrations such as Civi CRM, which integrates deeply with Backdrop for a specifically nonprofit focused CRM option. So those are all good reasons to consider Backdrop. I'm going to just mention a few of the key changes that have come into Backdrop since Drupal 7, primarily layouts, configuration management, and then in addition to those, Backdrop has a predictable release schedule, which brings in new features in an easy, backwards compatible way. There's a release every 4 months. So I'll talk a little bit more about layouts and configuration management, since they are probably the two things that take the most mental adjustment when you're coming from Drupal 7 to Backdrop. There's a new drag and drop context-aware layout system that was implemented in Backdrop. So if you're familiar with adding blocks in Drupal 7, blocks can still have individual visibility conditions, but so can entire layouts. And if you'll just page ahead to the next slide, have a screenshot of one of the screens here as I'm talking about layouts. So the blocks can still have individual visibility conditions, but so can entire layouts. And you can create as many layouts as you need. This makes it easy to have a specific layout for a particular section of the website or a particular content type or taxonomy, vocabulary, and so on. The block listings on these layout pages are much more manageable and easy to visualize compared to Drupal 7. These layouts can be defined in code, but Backdrop also provides a user interface to create flexible layout templates in the browser, which is what this screenshot shows. You can add rows and define the columns in those rows, and then those will become the regions where blocks can be placed. Configuration management essentially allows you to separate your data and your configuration. And out of the box, the way that works is that your data is primarily in the database, and then your configuration is saved in JSON files. And once you get your head around that concept, it's a major time saver for deployments and allows you to keep your configuration settings in version control easily. This screenshot shown here is the interface. The website also gives a user interface for comparing configuration changes so that you can kind of see the differences in the files before you synchronize new versions of configuration from your local or from a development site to your live site. And you can manage it from the command line or through this visual interface as you're importing, exporting, and synchronizing your configuration. Various other improvements have been made throughout the interface over the years to smooth out some of the rough spots that were present in Drupal 7. Pictured here is a built-in image library, allows the content editor to search and select from images that have been uploaded. And this works either in the CK editor or TinyMCE editor browser, or in an image field directly. So if you upload an image on an image field, it will also become available to you in your editor, and vice versa. And I hinted at it, but the screenshots in the last 3 pages I'm going to mention is from one of the projects I like to spend some time improving, which is the Gin administrative theme, which is being ported and made available in Backdrop. And I'm quite excited about that. Thanks to Sasha Eggenberger and me collaborating on that. With a move from Drupal 7 to Backdrop, your site can be upgraded directly, as I mentioned, rather than migrated or rebuilt from scratch. Beyond the regular upgrade process, I'll also mention here an exciting tool that a team of people is working on. It's called D2B, or Drupal 7 to Backdrop Migrate, which allows you to connect a fresh backdrop site to an existing Drupal 7 site and automate or lead you through in a more guided way some of the process, such as downloading modules into the backdrop site and then running the upgrade, like copying the Drupal 7 database and running the upgrade into the backdrop site. During this transition or this upgrade process, you can, as I mentioned, decide whether you want to keep a similar theme, refresh your theme, or redesign. It can happen any of those ways. You can also add or remove functionality as part of the upgrade. And many of the most popular modules from Drupal 7 have been integrated directly into Backdrop Core, which is helpful in terms of maintenance and security going forward, knowing that key modules that you rely on will continue to be supported and upgraded and part of the process. Backdrop has a relatively small dependency footprint, and one of the things that means is that future upgrades will also be smoother and more cost-effective. You don't have like a core dependency reaching end of life, so you've got to then have your content management system version bumped up and reach end of life and do upgrades because of the dependency end of life. As I hinted at earlier, if your team's already well trained on your current site, they'll see much that is familiar but improved, and your onboarding and training time costs go down. This is a big one. If you have custom code that's working well, much of it can be upgraded very easily to work with Backdrop versus rewriting it completely or more major refactoring. So all of this adds up to a less expensive upgrade, but also a site that's less expensive to maintain over time. I've got a couple of examples that I'll just show quickly before my time is up here. Of sites that we've upgraded from Drupal 7 to Backdrop. BioX is Stanford's pioneering interdisciplinary biosciences institute. They had a D7 site, and they wanted a solution that would preserve all the years of content and development work that they had put into it, and also would remove the uncertainty produced by D7's coming end of life. So in this case, they were happy with their information architecture. They had all the content that they wanted to keep. And so it made a very compelling case for Backdrop, because all that stuff comes over and doesn't have to be rebuilt and then the content migrated into the new shell that you built. With the help of Backdrop's configuration management, we were able to make a variety of improvements along the way while we were preparing the upgrade, before we actually did the upgrade, and things like views and so on, which could then be exported into configuration that was staged. As soon as we were doing the final upgrade, we could then synchronize all those configuration changes and have them apply like in the blink of an eye. So that was super helpful, and minimized the amount of time we needed to have a content freeze. On launch day, the time from the beginning of the content freeze to when we had the fully upgraded database was only about 30 minutes, which I thought was super cool. And then after all the initial improvements that the upgrade to Backdrop brought directly, just as part of the upgrade itself, we've been able to make iterative improvements after launch and work through a list of opportunities that we've developed and that the BioX team has collected over the years. The next example I have is Solo and Seed Funding, which are two Stanford sites. They function as feature-rich platforms to collect applications for academic opportunities. And these were built iteratively over time on Drupal 7. It wasn't like the site just launched and then ran for years and years. It was built and features added and improvements made in an ongoing process over time. This meant a lot of custom code that tied in deeply with Drupal 7 style hooks and APIs, and also meant that moving to Backdrop was supremely cost effective. An internal estimate we did was that upgrading this particular project to Backdrop cost less than 20% what we estimated it would have taken to rebuild it in a newer version of Drupal. So you can see that type of cost effectiveness. And I would love to take any questions you have towards the end of the webinar. For now, let me pass things over to Ellie to talk about what moving to WordPress could look like.
Thanks, Laren. WordPress is an option with an easy interface for non-technical teams, the ability to integrate interactive features with little overhead, and a less complex content structure to simplify the authoring process. If you're looking for a simpler content structure and an easier user interface than your current Drupal 7 site, this may be a great opportunity to make the switch to WordPress. WordPress is a powerful content management solution truly designed with the authoring experience in mind, and it's so easy to use right out of the box. The clean and simple user interface that WordPress provides is tailored to authors with little to no technical knowledge or coding expertise. The easy-to-use tools make it a great fit for teams that may have a mixed level of experience. If you've been dreaming of adding complex functionality to your site but struggling to find the budget, WordPress might be the perfect solution. Thousands of open source plugins exist within the WordPress plugin library to integrate complex features into your site with very little overhead. The beauty of WordPress is in its simplicity. If your current site structure feels overwhelming or overly complex, this may be the perfect opportunity to consider a refresh. Restructuring your content with WordPress through a migration can reduce the back-end bloat and make it easier to create and manage your content in a way that makes sense and is straightforward and easy for your team to use. An example of when migration just makes sense is our work with the Population Council. Their former CMS platform was bloated with unnecessary tools that made content management a confusing and overwhelming process for their team. They were looking for a solution that would be simpler to manage for their remote team of mixed technical expertise. Part of our engagement with the Population Council was restructuring their content with a migration to WordPress. This gave their team a cleaner back-end user interface for creating and managing content, while also providing an easier site navigation experience for their audience. Their needs also evolved over time to include new content types. WordPress provided a flexible enough content management experience that their content structure was able to grow with them to create new content types, such as their innovation hubs, that are fully customizable on the back end without touching any code. WordPress makes content management easy with cutting-edge authoring tools, such as the WordPress Full Site Editor, which comes standard with WordPress core themes. These tools can be fully customized to meet your specific site needs. This makes it easy for authors to create and manage content in a drag-and-drop building environment without the need for extensive technical expertise. Pre-built templates give authors a starting point, while remaining flexible enough to support the author's control over page layouts and content. Authors are able to visually preview their page layouts and changes prior to publication and make adjustments as needed. This real-time visual feedback that these authoring tools provide makes content creation a more streamlined, smooth process. Pictured here is an example of the back-end editing experience when building with WordPress full site editing tools. Each fully themed component can be added, arranged, modified, or removed to create pixel-perfect page layouts without touching a single line of code. This makes creating new content or updating existing content easy and intuitive for authors of all levels of technical expertise. WordPress is also a scalable solution with flexible content types. As site needs evolve over time, the backend content structure within WordPress can adapt to meet those needs. Over 43% of all websites on the internet are powered by WordPress, giving it one of the largest user communities of any content management system. This global WordPress community has contributed an open source library of over 60,000 individual plugins. These plugins make it easy to integrate complex site functionality such as interactive UI elements, calendar systems, analytics monitoring, and more, all with just a few clicks. Because it is so widely used, WordPress provides seamless integration with many of the leading CRM platforms, making customer relationship management a breeze. If you're looking to simplify your structure, make content management easy, or integrate complex site functions on a budget, WordPress might be the perfect solution for you. I'd be glad to talk some more about WordPress and what that migration process will look like at the end of this presentation, but for now, I'll pass things over to Phil to tell you more about Drupal.
Thank you, Ellie, and thank you, Laren, too. I do want to remind everyone that even though you do have other great options like Backdrop and WordPress, Drupal is still an exciting, viable, and scalable solution. If you're used to the Drupal framework, you like the Drupal framework, your website is already tailored to the Drupal framework, upgrading to newer versions of Drupal may not be as difficult as you think. And even if you are finding the transition to newer versions of Drupal daunting, remember that Drupal is still a leading choice for open source content management system, and is often better to stick with it rather than learn and rebuild on an entirely new system. Even though there have been significant upgrades to the Drupal system since Drupal 7, it still serves as widely supported by a diverse, supportive, and open source community. It's still going to be your best bet for new and innovative features revolving around open source CMS technology. With the introduction of single directory components and integrations with Storybook, Drupal is now faster to build, and even more extensible than ever before. Drupal has the ability now to adopt yours or any design system fluidly. A lot of Atten's clients who have undergone the upgrade process are also taking advantage of upgrading their editing process as well, most namely by using one of Atten's contributed modules called Mercury Editor, which I'll talk about a little bit later here. Again, Mercury Editor also makes the process of editing and building content on your website easy and quick. And again, I'll go more in detail on that. Some examples of Atten clients that have upgraded from Drupal 7 to newer versions of Drupal are Tufts University. A lot of clients who decided to upgrade Drupal, again, actually found a great opportunity to rethink, replan, rebuild their website, such as Tufts Now, which is a news-centric division of Tufts University. They refreshed their Drupal website design along with a migration and upgrade from Drupal 7 to Drupal 10. Tufts University utilized their own design and strategy teams to reorganize large amounts of article-based content and apply a new, modern, custom theme, as you can see here. Also, a new editing interface was introduced with layout paragraphs to make the process of editing content for Tufts Now editors especially a lot more simple and streamlined. Another example, the Natural History Museum of Utah, or NHMU, also decided to upgrade their design system while also reorganizing their content during migration and upgrade to Drupal 10. Our strategy team was able to take over 70 different content types that had become burdensome to manage down into 8 very strategic and purposeful content types. Our design team then also reimagined the museum's design system into the modern, sleek, accessible, and easy to use website that you see today. And as we're about to cover again, NHMU also took advantage of this stage in the upgrade process to utilize Atten's Mercury Editor tool for more fluid content editing capabilities and experience across the website. And while this video plays here, and I'll take my time as we go through some of this, as I have already alluded to, upgraded versions of Drupal now feature means of editing content faster than ever before. There are tools that have been developed for Drupal that greatly enhance and improve the authoring experience and content throughout your website, Mercury Editor being one of them. Mercury Editor in particular takes the editing experience out of the back end, those field-focused form pages, and transforms that directly into the front end view of a page where you can inline and in real time edit content. Mercury Editor's suite of tools makes it easy not to only edit content, but to move existing content around on a page, duplicate chunks of content or whole sections of content, and to ultimately give trusted control back to your editors and your website's content. Mercury Editor is currently a contributed project module on Drupal.org and is easy for pretty much anyone using layout paragraphs to set up. I just actually recently had a developer limited client set this all up by themselves. And it was a really neat process to see just to be installed and ready to use after some simple configurations. Cool, yeah, just let's see in this video play out a little bit more. Yeah, here you can see the process of adding sections, adding components, adjusting those sections. So in this instance, each section has the ability to change its style, its spacing. Here we're adding a teaser directly into a layout. There we go. Oh, in this case, it was a media carousel. Yeah, cool. Yeah, we could probably switch slides now. Perfect, thank you. Another piece to Drupal that has greatly improved since Drupal 7 is the way that media is managed throughout the website. Drupal core media is now encompassed by an entity. This makes it super easy to theme and to manage media via a library, being able to add, edit, and then reference that media wherever you need it to go. This greatly reorganizes the entire media management process and reflects similar processes to what you've seen on both Backdrop and WordPress. On top of the management advancements made by Drupal, it is now easier than ever to configure your media to be both responsive and load lightning fast. And of course, everything that I'm speaking about on Drupal is also to say that Drupal is a very scalable, customizable tool and is improving with every versioned release. Scaling up to newer versions of Drupal past Drupal 7 is as easy as performing regular core or module updates because of the updated object-oriented approach to the software structure. Newer versions of Drupal are much more accepting of APIs and third-party integrations. Content types, blocks, paragraphs, fields, all the normal jargon that you're used to, pretty much any of your data is still customizable and can still be displayed to suit any designs, layouts, comps, or visions otherwise. Drupal still has the capability to be easily set up for small businesses and grow to benefit larger enterprise businesses as well. Again, scaling up to newer versions of Drupal could be a great opportunity to rethink your data, your design system, etc. And of course, Atten Design Group started as a Drupal shop. We've been working with Drupal for about 2 decades now. Atten has been performing these upgrades to newer versions of Drupal since Drupal 8's inception. We have now upgraded and migrated dozens of Drupal sites. Myself and my team of Drupal developers are constantly being updated and then in turn updating our clients and our clients' websites with the latest core updates, security, and patches for both core and modules, on top of performance and accessibility. The Drupal developers on our team are certified on several different platforms, including Acquia, Platform.sh, and now Pantheon and others. Myself personally, I'm actually 2 parts through writing, building, and presenting a 3 or 4-part series on image optimizations in Drupal, including responsive imaging, cropping control, next-gen image formats, lazy loading, any of that. You can check out those webinars on the Atten website. I'm also part of the local nonprofit Drupal Colorado organization. I'm the secretary, and I help plan events centered around open source technologies. All that to say, we are deeply invested in Drupal, deeply invested in the Drupal ecosystem and open source technology. Thank you for your time and me giving Drupal its space. I'm going to hand it back to Jenna now.
Thank you so much, Phil, and thank you to Ellie and Laren for walking through all of these options for us. You all are experts. I'm really excited to have you on the webinar today. So for our audience, if you are still unsure of what to do with your Drupal 7 website and you want to schedule a call with us to discuss best options for your site and your site's needs specifically, we would absolutely love to talk to you. So get in touch with us at work@atten.io.